So today we have with us Mr. Christian Nolan Jones. Brother, you've had an amazing 2 years. I know you've had a much longer story. We recently met through some other friends in the industry, mutual colleagues. The moment I saw your work, I was just really impressed. And then when we met, you know, just the humbleness and just down to earth, good brother that you are, just speaks volumes through your actions and the way you communicate with people. So thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited.
No problem. Also, you are from ATL, oh, forgive me, from Decatur. I know people from Decatur don't even claim Atlanta. So let's just start there. You know, you were the Christian from the deck. You know, how did that shape your story into who you are?
I think for me, it's just being surrounded by blackness 24/7. That's sort of like what my upbringing was. Besides, my mom's Catholic, so every now and then we would have to go downtown to her church, and that was probably the most I would interact with white people. But besides that, you know, it's black teachers, black businesses. So I think that sort of like shaped my worldview early on, and then it was when I ventured out into the world, I was like, oh, the world's not like this.
It's not like that.
Yeah, so I think that just that in itself, you know, made my worldview a little bit different than I guess like other people or other artists.
And that's what makes Atlanta special, right? The same thing. It's like we just grew up with it, and that was the norm. Your doctor's black, your dentist is black, your accountant, like everything, you know, and that stays with you. And it stays with you in everything you do, everywhere you go, and you quickly find out that's not the norm. So when you were growing up, you know, just getting right into it as far as being a creative, a full-time, you know, writer, director, with success, like when did that spark enter into the fold when you were coming up as a kid?
For me, I think probably the 11th grade, maybe the 10th grade was when I started really getting interested in film, but like art, I think I tried my hand at a bunch of different things. I played saxophone growing up, piano. I tried to even dabble in like visual arts, like drawing, painting. Nothing really stuck. I I joked around with my friends that I kind of quit things when I knew that other people were better than me at it. I was like, oh, I'm not gonna do this. He's too good. For me, filmmaking was sort of something that I could do like as you know, as a fun thing with my friends. Like you do your first films probably on a small scale. So we were in the neighborhood and I would like write little treatments, and it was just cool to see my friends bring them, you know, to life, whether it be like a music video or like a smaller project. From there, when I went to school, I kind of didn't have them as a crutch, and that led me to buying my first camera. And then I just started shooting everything I could, not really knowing what I was doing, to be honest. But yeah, that's sort of how I got into my filmmaking journey.
And so when you say went to school, you mean to college?
To Howard.
So you went to Howard.
Yep.
And so what were you shooting when you
At Howard, I was shooting anything, man. I was shooting stuff for student council. I would shoot things for my friend Frico, who is from Atlanta also.
Yeah, I love his art.
Yeah, he would ask me to shoot him while he did like BMX tricks on the yard. I would shoot little community things. I ran a community media program at an after-school program, so I would help the students shoot like little content there, here and there. You know, so it all segued into different projects. And I think the one that really made a difference for me and like really convinced me that I could get into, I guess, video or filmmaking was I did a music video for my friends. And when we aired it on campus, like everybody was like, yo, this is the craziest music video. How do you guys have, you know, locations in 2 different states? You're in DC, you're in Atlanta, like y'all spent so much time on this.
What year was that?
That was going into my sophomore year.
Okay.
And I remember somebody was like, yo, that's the best video I've ever seen out of any Howard artist. And I was like, yo, for real?
What did you do? Like, what was the creative?
There really wasn't like any sort of concept. It was called Love, China, Japan, Dreams. Tried to make it like real dream-like, tried to make it a little trippy, and we were just in a lot of different locations. Like we would be in Atlanta, but then there was like a bamboo sort of like backdrop at a MARTA station. So I filmed them in front of that for like the China aspect of it. Then we shot like in a lot of landmarks in DC. There was like a little bit of narrative behind it. But honestly, I think the video wasn't really that good. But, you know, suffice to say, people enjoyed it. It gave me the confidence that I needed to sort of keep going, I think.
No, that's what it takes, right? You jumped in the water. You didn't know how it was gonna exactly turn out, but you know, something in you told you that that's what you needed to do, and you had full creative control, and
For sure.
and your boys just definitely supported you in that. So you're at Howard, you shooting everything, you learning how the camera works. I'm sure you were just probably fumbling through that, you know, getting your bearings. So after you did that, like you had that confidence, and you know, I know you went to NYU Film School. Talk to me about that transition from Howard. You're from Atlanta, you know, Black City. You're at Howard, HBCU, Black City, and now you're in New York. Talk to me about that journey from Howard to NYU Film School.
It was tough, you know, like because I went to NYU my junior year, so it was like going from being around people who really understand you, you know, like conversations are just easy to have like on a basic level, and then not being able to have that feeling isolated, not having too many people who look like you in your classes. I think my junior year I was like one of 3 Black students, and then my senior year I was like the only Black student in all my film classes. So that part of it was tough, and I had to navigate telling the stories that I wanted to tell and being okay with like my classmates not really understanding what I was trying to say. But I think that what that did for me also was sort of like toughen my skin when it came to, you know, criticism or being okay with, you know, this is not for them. This is, you know, for me. So I sort of focus more so just on the foundation of filmmaking, you know, how to frame things the right way, learning how to run a production, learning how to work, you know, every single position as much as I could in like a 3-man, you know, unit or a 4-man unit. I think the transition was pretty tough, but, you know, I got through it, and I think that I'm a better filmmaker because of it, for sure.
So backing up a little bit, you know, there's no one way to becoming a director or getting into the business, but you chose the film school path. You know, why was that an important thing for you? And like, how did you like get into NYU Film School? You know, that's a competitive film school. You know, that's just not any other film school.
For sure.
Like, so, you know, talk to me about how you got there, because I know there's somebody that's watching this now that is probably, you know, at that fork in the road trying to make that decision on what to do. And not necessarily, you know, following exactly what you do, but what's your perspective, and just tell us a little bit about how you went from here to here.
So I think I ended up at NYU out of necessity. It was like I had lost my scholarship at Howard. I was trying to find another school where I can get in and get a scholarship. And I applied to all these different schools. NYU was the only one that accepted me, but they didn't give me a scholarship at first. So, and I didn't even know how prestigious NYU was when I got in. I'm, like you said, I'm a kid from Decatur. I don't know nothing about NYU, USC, UCLA. I don't know anything about those schools at that point. I was like very fresh to film. What I ended up doing was my mom works at Emory, so she knows how to navigate the university system, and I identified the chairman of the film school, and I asked her if she could like snoop around their website and try to find his email, and she did. And I just emailed him, and I told him, you know, pretty much everything I could about my journey up until that point, and, you know, what I was gonna do if I didn't get some aid or, you know, some help being able to attend university. I just told him like, hey, I'm gonna probably end up just going back to Atlanta, and I probably won't continue going to school at this point. You know, lo and behold, he emailed me back, and, you know, they found a scholarship. It was like $30,000. That's how I ended up there. But what I would say to the person who's trying to decide, I think, you know, film school helped me in terms of having a structure, for sure. But if you're disciplined, I think that there are a lot of things that you can do outside of that structure,
Sure.
for yourself. And there are a lot of things that you have to do once you complete film school. Like you kind of start over in a way because, I had a portfolio, but it wasn't really work that I wanted to show people. As much they try to advertise you, okay, this is your work that you're gonna show to people in Hollywood, or you're gonna show to people who are working at these big media agencies. I didn't feel like my work was strong enough, so I kind of had to find my community again. Because like I said, I wasn't really meshing with people at NYU the same way. And then at the same time, I had to take everything that I learned and put it into whatever that next project was gonna be. So I think that it's really up to just your situation. I don't know where I would have ended up if I didn't continue film school, but I know that I probably would have continued to pursue filmmaking.
Right.
For sure.
What project did you submit to get into film school?
It's a short film called Discernment. Nobody's ever gonna see that.
You said nobody's ever gonna see it.
Nah.
It did the job though.
It did. And I did everything on my own. I shot it completely by myself. I think I even acted in it. So,
The Tyler Perry thing, huh?
yeah, I didn't know what I was doing really. I was just moving around the room with a camera. It was a silent film, so there was no dialogue. I was lighting with like source lights, house lights, inside the dorm rooms. Just trying to frame it as best as I could, just figuring things out.
If I'm not mistaken, was that the film? Because you went to Cannes, right? The Cannes Film Festival.
And how you know that?
And was that the film that was in Cannes?
Yeah, so it was in the short film corner. So they have a program at Howard. Well, it's a partnership called Creative Minds. Creative Minds comes to Howard or, to other, I think they go to other HBCUs also. They identify, who are the filmmakers, who wants to be in the industry. And basically they take you to Cannes or I think other film festivals also. They put you in 3 different programs. Either you can work with the agency, you can be an assistant to an exec, or you can make a film. So I went out there through Creative Minds, and that was another just eye-opening experience for me because that was like the first time I was really around the film industry, and that's I think when I decided nah, this is exactly what I want to do.
Yeah.
This is amazing.
Yeah, I think we share a connection there. That was my intro into the business as well.
That's crazy.
And it was at the short film corner was the first day I got there at the Palais. We went to the short film corner.
Yeah.
And there was a brother that had a short film there named Ryan Coogler, and we know the history. So everybody, this is who you're looking at. Same stories. Like brother was there, met him, he showed me his short film.
Yeah.
It was dope. I'm sure I would be curious if he would say the same thing to someone now. Yeah, nobody's ever going to see that short. But everybody, he got a short into Cannes, so it was worthwhile, obviously.
Yeah.
But yeah, to your point, I remember seeing that, and I was just talking with the brother Aaron, who's shooting with us today, about that same thing. Once you see something and you have that exposure,
Yeah.
that can be the spark that changes the direction of your life. And to see that at a young age, you were, young man in college,
Yeah.
seeing that and your life is different because of it. So, I applaud you of, just taking that leap.
Yeah, and I think the cool thing about Cannes that other festivals don't necessarily do is when you put your film, obviously my film wasn't in competition and all of that, but when you put your film in the short film corner, they give you the badge, the same badge that, a filmmaker who is in competition, you get that just for being in the short film
you got
corner.
full access.
And you have full access to everything, the parties, the screenings, the panels, and I think that's just something really cool that they do, and it shows how much they're really just doing it for the art. I mean, obviously, Cannes is
The biggest festival in the world.
Yeah, it's the biggest festival in the world. But there's a purist level to it as well. Because I've been to a lot of festivals since then, and it's not always filmmaker friendly. So for them to be so big and to be so filmmaker friendly, I think is really cool. So yeah.
So how old were you? 22, 3?
Nah, I probably was 20. Yeah.
Oh, so you
I was young.
weren't even legal.
Yeah. I
So,
mean, out there I was.
yeah, that's true. So you went to the parties and everything?
I went to some parties. I had a lot of fun there. I think the one thing that stood out to me was Kanye was doing the Cruel Summer screening, and I didn't go on the night that it premiered, but I went like maybe 2 or 3 days later, and I got to like watch it in an empty theater. So like that was like really cool. And that was just something else, like just being so close to what felt like something that was very monumental, something that was very like just unique for an artist to do, like screening a film on 7 different screens. And I was like, oh, like nobody's done that since. But it's somebody trying to push the limits. It was just like an overall just great experience. Yeah, I wish I could actually go back. But I told myself that
You
I
going
wouldn't.
back, brother. The
Yeah,
next couple of years.
I told myself I wouldn't go back
Until
until
you
I
had
had
a
a
film.
film that screen, yeah. So
Like one of the biggest things that festival taught me, and most festivals, it's about like being in the room and like the access, and that's the part of the business I think a lot of us aren't really privy to. It's just exposure and relationships.
yeah,
And a lot of times you need to have work to get into the room.
yeah,
And like you said, you started over. You realized, you know, I bet discernment was a nice piece, but you knew you wanted something else that could further your career.
yeah.
So what was that piece that you think you felt happy with or satisfied with after, post-film school that you like, okay, this is a calling card now, like somebody's about to know my name.
Somebody in the industry would probably say glitter is the calling card. But for me, I think Brown with Blue was the calling card. It was definitely the moment where I was like, I feel satisfied with this. I think I did enough. I put enough of myself into this piece. And it gave me the confidence that you can replicate this, if you have more money, no matter the circumstance. Because we were like really up against it making that film. Like honestly, we had no business trying to make that film. We didn't have enough funds. I don't think we had enough time for planning, but it was really a community effort, and then everybody, buying into the concept, wanting to see it through, and that's just another beautiful aspect of filmmaking is that like if you have like the right
Mix of
group
people.
of people
Yeah.
around you, anything is like possible.
Anything is possible.
Yeah, for sure. So that for me was my calling card. And yeah, I have a lot of great memories making that film, specifically, just going to Sapelo Island, being there we were probably only there for an hour tops, to film. Just in that moment, we drove 4 hours to the coast just to be there for an hour, just to get on a boat, get back in the car, drive right back, So yeah, that was definitely, just a magical, spiritual experience, I think.
Why are we here?
Because we need to move forward. To do that, we gotta go back to where it started. I keep hearing her crying for us. What kind of parents are we?
You don't think I hear her? I don't even know where she is. I can't even remember why we let her go.
I can't remember her face.
Now it was a strong film. It was heavy too. Where did that come from? Like why was that the piece you chose to take?
So it actually started, I was on the train while I was living in New York. I saw a older couple. They, looked like they were addicted to something. Had the dope lean going on. But what was really like interesting, right? When you get on the train in New York, people come on, they get their spiels. Like, this is why I need money, basically. They get on the train, they're just sitting next to each other. They're nodding off onto each other. Like, one person would nod off, and then the other would pick them up, put them on, and vice versa. So I'm watching this for maybe like 60 blocks, and then the guy next to me, we get to 86th Street, he gets up, walks over to them, gives them some money. I've never seen anybody in New York do that before. So I was like, oh, this guy saw exactly what I saw, like a couple who's, under the influence of God knows what, but like they still had that love for each other. And I was like, I've never seen that explored before in a film. So I tried to take a stab at it from the older perspective, from their perspective, and it just wasn't clicking. It took me sort of like dialing it back and exploring it from the POV of like a younger couple, and that ended up being the story that I stuck with. So yeah.
So you would say like being observant, is that, I think all great directors have to be observant
For
to
sure.
to tap into
For
that
sure.
space. But obviously, you just being present
Yeah.
in a specific moment
Yeah.
led you to receive that and to move further with it. Is there anything else within your process that you think is, essential, like in your director's toolkit, or just something that, this is what I do to get in the zone, or this is what I do to tap into my creativity?
I will say, like you said, I think all great directors are people watchers, and they have that empathy for everyone around them. But I think for me, my superpower as a director is that I have ideas and I hold on to them for years. Like I will literally sit with an idea for as long as I can and think about it over and over and over before I even commit any words to the page, just because I need to fully explore like all angles in my mind. And then sometimes even before I write anything down, I'll talk to people just about the concept, just like over and over, to see different people's perspectives. And in a way, like that's a way that I can do research and I can see like what's connecting, what's landing,
Right.
what's not. So I know that a lot of people wouldn't want to do that because you're sharing your ideas and people are afraid that the ideas will be taken. But
But if it's yours, it's yours.
exactly, it's, and especially if it's very specific, it's gonna be something that only you can do in that way. And I think you have to, be confident in that aspect of things. So
Right.
yeah.
Nah, agreed. And so, jumping around a little bit, like I said, I met you through Glitter, which has had a lot of fanfare. Took it to South by Southwest, won an award there. That story, I remember watching it, and I was like, man, you told the story about, the young brother trying to get the gold chain. But I had that same experience trying to get the fake driver's license down at Little Five, at 5 Points. But it's like, I feel like you captured the essence of a like 14-year-old that thinks that something material is gonna get the girl. He think it's gonna make him cool, and he just had another sister that was there the whole time that was like could give him everything he wanted.
Yeah.
Or everything he thought he was looking for.
Hey, little nigga, don't be slamming my door like that. Your friend ain't got no manners, bro? Hey.
Well,
Well, what?
boy, don't play stupid.
I don't know what you talking about.
Brill, did you get the money? Brill!
Ow.
Brill!
Ow, okay. Yes, I got it. Shit, you happy?
Hey. Not in my car, bro. What y'all need to go to the flea market for anyways, bro?
Brill trying to impress Marlena.
Bruh, what I tell you about tricking off on these hoes, man? You a trip, man. That's what.
Like, was that something? Like, did you have that experience? Like when you were coming up, or where did that idea for Glitter come from?
Yeah, I had. So what's crazy is my dad had actually given me a real chain. It was a white gold link chain. This happened to me in 4th grade, actually, the story. But when I got to Roland, I didn't really have any friends at the school. And the one kid that I connected with, like right off the bat, he had a fake chain, and I thought it was so cool. And he was friends with everybody else in the class. So I was like, oh, if I do what Maurice does, then, I'll have more friends. So I hustle up some money basically to, get to the flea market to buy a fake chain, and I do it. And obviously nobody really cares that I had a fake chain. Nobody cared when I had the real chain. Nobody cared when I had the fake chain. Nobody cared.
Nobody cared but your mama is what somebody
Exactly.
told me.
And my mom really, she was like, yo, why do you want this? You don't need this. But regardless, I got it. And I ended up being friends with everybody in the class, and I'm still friends with some of them to this day. But I think the idea of just that first material item that, you want so bad, you think it's gonna change your life. And we do this like even to this day as adults. I think like when we have milestones in our life, we want to marker them with, a material
Something,
item.
right.
Yeah, and I don't think there's anything wrong with that. But the first experience just opens you up to a lot of different things. Like that letdown of, oh no, it's just me. Like I have to win people over to be my friend, being myself. It doesn't really matter what's on the exterior. The idea that, in his case, if this woman don't like you, she just don't like you, brother. There's nothing that you're gonna be able to do.
Nothing you can do.
That's just what it is. But I think that that's an important lesson, though. You have to be humble. We get humbled millions of times in our lives, but that first time is just really special, and it's marked by, this material item. So, like, I think I might still even have that chain. I had the chain that the Nemesis had. I had the Bulldog with the ruby red eyes. It's just a very special moment in my life, and I felt like, this is a cool rite of passage to explore.
No, I thought it was great because I think you tapped into something that, let alone young black kids, but like I think everybody can relate to that.
For sure.
Something like you said, something material, something outside of yourself that you think is going to make you whole.
Yeah.
And you're the only person that can make yourself whole, right?
It's deep.
I remember same thing. It was with the starter jacket for me. I got the starter jacket. It's like the Jordan is gonna make you cool.
Man, what?
And I still didn't get to know,
We learned the same lesson over and over.
Right. No, that's dope. So when Glitter won that award, how did that feel?
It's so crazy because when we were at South by, the first night there, we ran into the judges of our category. And somebody said my name while one of them was passing by, and they were like, which one of y'all is Christian Nolan Jones? And I was like, what? What are you? I'm him, but who are you? And he introduced himself to me. He was like, my name is Mo. I saw your film. It's beautiful. And he said to me, congratulations, you've found your purpose in life to make stories, to tell stories, to make films. And I thought that was just like such a crazy thing for a stranger to say, that it sort of was, it ate at me for the rest of the trip. And I turned to my manager, Trey, and I was like, bro, I want to win. I came here not wanting to win, but now I want to win. So fast forward when we get to the night of the award show, I was like back and forth, didn't want to go, I want to go. Everybody was like, bruh, you have to go. Like, we have to go.
You gotta go.
But I gave everybody a scare. I had to use the bathroom like literally right before our category was called. And everybody was like, yo, where are you? Where's Christian? I come back to my seat. We're all holding hands. And yeah, they called the name of the film. It was a beautiful experience. And, it's easy to say like, you don't care about accolades, but it's also just refreshing and relieving to be recognized for your hard work. And I think that's like was gratifying for me, just to be recognized for, like, to me, I wasn't just being awarded for Glitter. It was for, all the films that came before, all the work that I had done, prior to.
Right.
The name of the award it symbolizes that too, because it says special jury recognition for directing and community filmmaking, you know, and that sort of, as an independent filmmaker, has been my ethos, you know, from the beginning. Maybe not necessarily the way that I wanted it to go, but that's just been my journey. And, you know, that I've been able to build a community through filmmaking, and it's worked out very well for me. So I think that that's something that should be highlighted as well, that, you know, building alongside your friends, your family,
horizontal, yeah.
it can lead to something great, you know. And then I also look at, like, from each of my projects, just it's cool to see how people go off and do their own thing, and, you know, now they're doing things in production design or producing or, you know, costume design, whatever. You know, that's really cool to see, like, oh, okay, this is somebody who may have been adjacent to film, and I pulled them in to work on my project, and now they're killing it in another lane. So,
No, that's what it's all about, right? Like you said, the community piece is you know, just I think how we should just be thinking as a whole. You know, it's up to us to help the next person up.
Yeah.
And I think, you know, winning that award, you know, directing and community filmmaking is, you know, a testament to, like, who you are as a person. So obviously, you know, winning that award, you're checking them off. So you opening doors. So that one opened some doors for you. You know, you've directed an episode of Rap Shit, Issa Rae's series on HBO Max. You know, tell me about that experience. You know, that was, you know, it's a big budget show, but you're being handed the script, you're being handed the characters, you're being handed a lot of the production design. You know, everything is here. So how was it, you know, going from, you know, Glitter is completely your idea, that's your baby, it's your, you know, that came from the soul, to stepping in as a, you know, series director for somebody else's project?
It's different. It's different. You definitely have to, like, take a step back and tell yourself, this is not my show. You know, I don't need to come here and reinvent the wheel, so to say. I need to mesh with, you know, what's been done before me. And what was interesting was I was the last episode to shoot. So even though my episode was 3, we filmed it last. So a lot of stuff was established. So I had to find ways to sort of, like, leave my imprint on, you know, my episode. But I think what was really cool is that, for me, I took it as a challenge some days to sort of be on the same page as Issa and Sarita. Like, if I could present an idea to them that they really like, that can make one or two of them, you know, laugh, then I think I'm doing a good job. And then just trying to beat them to the punch with notes, you know, maybe leaving the scene with as little takes as possible. I think maybe not, my first day, like, the final scene had so many takes, and I'm just not used to going past, like, 4 takes, you know, because you go into it knowing exactly what you want. And it was like, dang, I'm messing up. And they're like, nah, this happens to everybody. You know, it's gonna happen to you once. Because we flew through the day, and I get to the last scene, and I'm feeling like
Stomped.
Yeah, I'm like, man, I'm
So what was the
up
cause?
right now. Yeah.
What was it?
I can't even remember what it was, to be honest. But I know that they looked at me and they were like, bro, you did great today. Comparatively speaking to, you know, like, not to say that everybody had a bunch of takes, but comparatively speaking, for a first-time director, you know, you're doing fine.
Shit.
Well, you don't like it? It's bad?
No, it's actually fire. Vocals, crisp. Shit, I didn't think it was gonna be that good.
Yeah, I tried to step it up.
Yeah, we official.
I see. I bet this shit probably costs, what, a few grand?
Yeah, I'm probably gonna return it.
Please don't do that. I'm trying to fix it.
What you doing? It's done?
Yeah, check that shit out.
I think that the other cool thing about it was that it was a community experience as well. Like on that set, like they cultivated a great environment. Everybody had fun being there. It was really empowering. From Issa to Denise to Sarita to the other writers to the talent on set. It feels like family. Just to see Issa just work. Sometimes people create a show and they pop in every
Step
now
out,
and then.
yeah.
She was on set every single day. If she wasn't on my set, she was on another set, for the pickups or, whatever, scenes that they had to get. So that part of it was really cool too, just to see somebody of her magnitude, not take anything slightly, no half stepping. She's in it.
Yeah, that was going to be my question. Of course I don't know Issa, but from everything I've read in interviews and BTS clips, I feel like she would also support a very like community-based,
For sure.
approach in the way she approaches her projects. It seems very authentic, and that's I'm glad to hear that.
Yeah, and I mean, don't get me wrong, she's serious,
Of course,
but
yeah.
like once there's a chill moment, you can laugh with her, you can joke. Yeah, I think on our last day on my episode, we had a push-up contest, and her and Sarita were judging our form, the push-ups. But yeah, it was just like things like that. You get a little bit of reprieve. We can joke around, have fun. But when we're in it, she's on trying to get this done. And that was one of the cool things. Like, this is happening while Insecure is at its height. And I remember sitting down with her on my first day and asking her, like, how do you feel about Insecure, being, this big thing? And then she said, yeah, that's cool, but this is where I'm at right now. And I want to make this as big as I can, and that just speaks volumes, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Dope. So when I think of Issa and Insecure, like how she seems like she captured LA. Of course, John Singleton captured LA. I think of Spike, where She's Gotta Have It, and a lot of his early films, like just Do the Right Thing. It's like that's New York.
Yeah.
And like to you, when I was watching Glitter, like I felt like that's Atlanta.
Yeah.
For me being from Atlanta, it's like, okay, like this brother captured Atlanta in 20 minutes.
Yeah.
Would you say that, with some maybe upcoming projects, some projects you may be in development or writing, I know you're more than just writing about Atlanta.
Yeah.
But do you see yourself as being a part of, the wave of filmmakers here in this city that basically gonna put Atlanta on the map?
Yeah, for sure.
Some more, not to say Atlanta's not already on the map, but when I think about filmmaking, it's like, of course, we've had some things filmed here.
Yeah.
And we see the city, but it's not like what Spike did for New York and
Nah,
John
for
Singleton
sure.
did for LA.
Yeah, nah, for sure. I feel like that's something that irks me, is like when I watch a film and it's like this major blockbuster, hit, and Atlanta's the backdrop, but it's like it could be any city. And it's like only I know that it's Atlanta because there'll be like little things that give it away. But for me, I think what you're saying is exactly my mentality. I want Atlanta's culture to be known worldwide. I want people to put a little bit more respect on the city's name. We see now all these people are flocking here, whether it's in the industry or whether it's people who are in tech or, all these different things. And, they enjoy the city. But for whatever reason, we just don't get the same love. So I think for my first, few films or my first few projects, I definitely want to just tap into just what Atlanta is culturally in the same way that, the people who came before me did, for their cities. If I can have a film that's like a cultural piece, like in the canon of art, in like a Friday or a Boys in the Hood or a Baby Boy, like those are things that I definitely, hope to do, and if I was able to achieve that, that would, it would mean the world to me, for sure.
Nah, definitely. Likewise, I'm on the same plane. Like supporting the artists here.
Yeah.
How can how can me personally, support that art from different creatives.
Exactly, yeah.
What are you excited about, like coming up in the business right now? Whether it's projects you're working on, or are there any pieces that you've seen or films you've seen in the last you know year or so that have really stuck out and that you've been really inspired by?
1001. I just saw that in theaters. Big fan of A.V. Rockwell. I feel like she's always putting something out like around the same time where I'm thinking about putting something out, and seeing her work just always, it inspires me. I tweeted like her films make me want to be a better director. So to see her, create such a specific, unique, emotional feature definitely, gets me excited for my next feature. Well, my first feature, Kinfolk. And once again, it's very New York. If you live in New York, you'll feel it. And it's very Harlem, which Harlem is a place that I hold near and dear because I spent a lot of years there. I just started watching Poker Face by
Yeah,
Ryan Johnson.
I've heard about that one. I haven't seen it.
Yeah, I was hearing a lot about it. It's really weird, like in a good way though. Like it's so interesting to see like where TV is going. Like there are characters that you see on TV now that I feel like we wouldn't have seen 10, 20, 30 years ago. So I think that just TV as a whole is exciting on the creative aspect.
Right.
Some of the other stuff is, we talked about it, is a little scary. But and then for me, I'm just really excited about these projects I got. Kinfolk, Black Star Line. Those are the two features that I'm working on. Kinfolk is a really Atlanta film. It's a really East Side film. It's like an expansion of Glitter and that world, that universe that we were able to create with that. And I think Black Star Line is like more worldly, more crazy, more absurd. And I'm really excited about getting into it and figuring out, how that's gonna come to be. So yeah.
Nice. So, we have, the audience looking at this, and of course we have filmmakers along, different journeys. You've gone from, independent, solo by yourself, no representation. You mentioned, your manager, Trey. You have representation through agency. So talk about that, because I think a lot of times we kind of overlook some of these other pieces that are, that are important to get you, in the room that we talked about.
For sure.
How has that been, and like building that, trusted base of, other pieces of the puzzle to help you along the way?
It's a lot of trust that you have to have because they're in the room, really, to be honest, like truly. They're sort of your mouthpiece, for these people who don't know you, who don't necessarily understand you. So you have to have a lot of trust there. And with Trey, he's been my manager since before he was a manager. He's been my manager for 6, 7 years, and we kind of had to just build together. And that's another cool thing, I think, between our relationship, because he's worked at these management companies and these agencies, and he was working at Abrams, and I would have to explain that too. I'd be like, my manager's an assistant at Abrams. He's not really a manager. And people would be like, oh, that's confusing. Like, why are you even doing that? Just go get a real manager. And I'm like, nah, this is somebody I trust.
Yeah, that's who you trust, and who's in your corner, got your back.
And I know that he's gonna, ride for me. I know that he gets the full picture. For my agency, I've had a good experience. Well, I'm having a good experience right now with CAA, but prior to that, I was with A3, and it started good, but my agent got fired, and that sort of like sent me on I wouldn't say a downward trajectory with the agency, but we weren't aligned at that point.
Yeah.
Because the person who brought me in, once again, who's advocating for you, has your best interest in mind, isn't there anymore. So the relationship sort of shifts. You move into a space where it's people who don't really know who you are, don't know why you've been signed, maybe they don't see the same thing in your work. So I had to part ways with them, but I think that was an important lesson for me too, to understand that I am ultimately what's giving the situation worth, So I got myself, to this point, alongside, working with Trey, but I got myself to this point, and I could do it again. So stepping out into the blind, I think at that point Trey was a coordinator at Authentic. It was sort of like we were starting over, it felt like. But literally a month or two later, that's when we heard about Rap Shit. So, it's just, yeah, there has to be a lot of belief in just the people who believe in you, who, are beside you. And you have to, trust that you're on the right path. But I tell people, don't ever sign with somebody just because of the name behind them. It's about, you're not signing to the agency or the management company. You're signing to the manager or the agent.
Yeah, the person. Yeah, staying on that for a little while, like just like lessons learned. What's been the hardest, but maybe most essential lesson that you've learned? It might be a loaded question, but just let me give you an example. Like for me, on the producing side of things, probably like one of the hardest lessons I learned. It's like when you get to a level of, like, if you're managing like a big budget, a network budget. I remember the first time I went over budget, and like, and like that feeling, and it sucks, and you feel like you failed, and all the eyes looking on you, because that's a line producer's job. I was a line producer at the time. It's your job is to bring us in on time and under budget, not on. Like when you're dealing with the network, they want you to come in under budget. And so when you blow that, it's like, okay, damn. Like, but what that taught me was a lot of lessons that mistakes I haven't made since, because like I saw the signs and I had experienced it before. Not that will it happen again? Who knows? Doubtful, but it could, right? It could. I'm a human being, right?
I doubt it will.
But that was a hard lesson, but it was an essential lesson. And
Yeah.
looking back at it, I'm glad it happened. I'm still here, I'm still breathing, and you keep moving, especially if you work with a team of people who support you in your growth. That's part of it. On the directing side of things, has there been anything that you've experienced that you're like, man, that was tough, but it was a hard lesson that I needed to learn?
Man, I think so. My hardest lesson, I think, was when I first signed with Abrams, or with A3. They're A3 now. I thought that, oh, this is it. I made it. I got an agent. And what I didn't do was put in sort of like, I think I let off the gas a little bit, didn't put in as much work as I had, prior to. And I thought that, oh, they're gonna bring me in gigs. I'll be able to do TV now, or people were gonna look at my deck for my feature, and they're gonna want to option it, or whatever. And I think I spent a lot of time just waiting. Obviously, you're doing things in the in between, like generals, and I'm meeting people, but I'm also meeting them with like nothing to show. So that part of it was just a wake up call. When I look back at those years, I feel like I could have applied a little bit more pressure. Like you said, it was just a lesson that I had to learn. So looking back at that, this past year, I had a different perspective, and I actually told my agents last year, like right after I got back from South by, I was like, hey, I don't really want to do any generals right now. I just want to focus on Kinfolk and developing the other projects that I have that are, on my slate for me. They're like, okay, respect. And I got to work. And now I think I'm in a better position of, just knowing like where my personal projects are in development, and knowing where, they're gonna end up. Like I can actually say like with confidence, like, oh, I think that I'm gonna shoot Kinfolk, later this year, versus, oh, I'm still working on the script, I'm still waiting to hear back, or, this, that, and the third. So, I think that was a necessary lesson for me to learn, so I could apply, pressure.
Nah, great lesson. Yeah, it got you locked in. Like nobody's gonna, get it there for you. People will support when they see the momentum,
For sure.
and they see the effort you're putting in. But yeah, the fact that you you learned that and got locked in. That's what it's all about.
For sure.
But now our time is coming up. I mean, coming to a close. But I did want to, if you had any other advice, for your younger self or any other younger filmmakers out there, one or two pieces of advice that you think are essential in this journey.
I always say the same thing, which is just don't wait. Don't wait on nobody. Just get out there and do it. I think that's been a mantra that served me very well, especially in my New York years. Yeah, don't wait for nobody. What do they say? Green light yourself.
All right, there it is. Christian Nolan Jones. Thank you, brother.
Thank you.